All right, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate that. And I want to welcome everybody to the Fall Reliability and Security Oversight Workshop. We've got a great agenda for everybody this week, and we know that the WECC is meeting later in the week. We have a couple of administrative items, and then we'll kick right into it. But here you've got the WECC 2025. Don't forget that password for the Weston Conference if you want to get on the Wi-Fi. We did the safety message, and now I'd like to provide a bit of a welcome. We got a question? WECC 2025. So my name is Stephen Noss. I'm the Vice President of Reliability and Security Oversight at WECC. I have the pleasure of working with a lot of WECC teammates involved in registration, certification, compliance program coordination, oversight planning, any monitoring or auditing, and our enforcement teams. And a lot of them are here this week. We have some other staff from WECC this week, and we know that they worked with a lot of industry participants, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let me cover a couple of the administrative items before I give a few thoughts to kick off the workshop, and then we turn it over to our keynote speaker who joins us from the E-ISAC today, Frank Honkus. First, we do have a reception this evening, starts at 4:30. You should have received a ticket for a complimentary drink as well as part of your welcome package, but that'll be at 4:30 up on the 4th floor, so not too far from here. Hope to see many of you there and look forward to connecting with colleagues, talking about the day, and getting to know everybody a little bit better. If you registered in the workshop, you should have access to the WHOVA app, the WHOVA platform. And in that platform, there's a lot of dine-arounds that different people have hosted. Some of them are from WECC staff, some of them are from others, but there's an opportunity to go in and see where they're going, who's going, what type of dinner that's going to be happening. And so I encourage you to look for and find a dine-around to join with some colleagues, maybe from some other organizations, and go out and enjoy San Diego tonight. So please look at WHOVA, don't miss that opportunity. Okay, and then on Thursday, we transition a little bit. So the oversight workshop is today and tomorrow. And tomorrow, I think we're breaking out a little bit into different entities, different type of entity breakouts. And then on Thursday, our partners at the Western Interconnection Compliance Forum are hosting their meeting. And so the details are listed here. You should have been able to separately register for that. But there's representatives from the WECC that are here. If you did miss that you'll be able to talk to. So let me take a couple of minutes and give you all a welcome. So as I mentioned, I want to welcome you all to San Diego. We've put a lot of thought into try to plan what we hope is a worthwhile workshop for all of you. We've had some changes over the last couple of years in terms of try to dial in, the right approach. We've quickly found that, there's not a one size fits all. It's clear. There's different types of people at different types of entities, some of whom have been part of this NERC reliability standards compliance monitoring type of construct for several years, in some cases, multiple decades. There's other folks who have, barely had 3 months or 9 months or 12 months and may have come from a different organization. And so those different types of audiences get different things out of different types of workshops. So we've tried, and we're trying today and this week to be a little bit more technically focused than we are in the spring. And then in the spring, we try to return more to a program focus that we hope is more valuable to those folks who might not have as much experience in the NERC reliability standards or compliance space. And so that's the divide we're trying right now. We do rely on your feedback. So when you get the survey, to talk about that, recognizing that, there's some overlap a little bit, but that's kind of the emphasis that we're trying for on each of those. Next, I want to recognize all of the people that put time and effort into helping to make this workshop a success. So certainly there's a lot of WECC staff, my own team, and other folks from WECC. And then they've also partnered with many of you, some of your industry colleagues and peers, to help prepare panels and participate. So if you help to prepare a panel or logistics or anything related to this workshop whatsoever, if you could just give a hand raise, and if just raise your hand or stand up and let everyone see who you are. It's who's helped. Get a little feedback on it. Thank you, everyone. Great. No, thanks. So just the effort, the workshop couldn't happen without their effort. So I do appreciate that. Next, I want to pivot a little bit. This is the only opportunity I have to speak with all of you at this workshop. And I want to make the most of it and take advantage of some recent activities that have occurred in our space and to highlight some of those. At WECC, we've long believed that our value proposition lies in our perspective, our independence, and our partnership. And, it's important that we have those interactions and that we do partner with industry workshops such as this. But while this conference is focused a lot on, compliance monitoring and reliability standards and things related to oversight, it brings an opportunity for me to highlight a pretty notable FERC order that occurred recently. It came out on October 2nd, as a matter of fact. And, the parties aren't relevant to what I want to talk about, but it does relate to WECC. You can find that in docket IN 25-11, IN 25-11. And it's a stipulation and consent agreement outlining civil penalties that are rooted in a violation of NERC rules of procedure obligations to provide timely and accurate information to us. And so it's a little bit different. It's something that we haven't regularly encountered, and it's something that we want to highlight with seriousness, maybe to help inspire some conversations for everybody this week. But the backstory is that it's in response to a 2020 audit that WECC was conducting. And as part of that audit, there were some data requests, and even up through the senior management of the entity, there was knowledge that they didn't want to provide certain information to WECC. But really, even more troubling to me is that FERC found in the order that the entities prepared false audit responses to WECC. They were developed with the aid of a third-party audit consultant. They'd hired to assist with the audit. And FERC found that the audit consultant provided the language used to actually prepare the false audit responses. The consultant even acknowledged that the language could be perceived as hiding information from WECC. Yeah. But despite recognizing that the false audit responses would conceal evidence from us, FERC found the audit consultant presented the entity nonetheless with the language actually used to prepare the false audit responses. So we found out about this in 2023 through a separate internal investigation that the entity prepared, and they self-reported to WECC based on these findings. So of course it became of significant interest to us, and ultimately in the ensuing months led to the outcome that is the FERC order that was released on October 2nd. In the order, the FERC commented that it, quote, found problematic the role of the audit consultant. They commented that by providing the language used to prepare the false audit responses and acknowledging as much that they were not accurate, the audit consultant involved itself in the submission of false, inaccurate, and misleading information to WECC. They find that the guidance was inconsistent with their obligation of third parties consulting firms to advise and guide entities to provide only truthful, accurate, and complete results during audits. So WECC takes the findings from this order very seriously. So too do my colleagues within the Aero enterprise as a whole. I just, a couple weeks before this order was released, had a chance to go back to my alma mater, West Point, one of my reunions there. And one of the foundations of the Academy is this notion of a cadet honor code. It's right there. It was reminded of me, right, walking around, the cadet living quarters emblazoned on stone. It says, a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. And that resonates deeply within me. It's been a big part of who I am throughout my professional career. And it's why the language in FERC's order is so hard to digest. But I wanted to share that all with you today because I think this is a watershed moment. And I share it because I think it highlights some lessons that we can all learn and that I hope that we all take with us. It's timely. And because of the topic of this conference, I hope we all have a chance to reflect on it. But first of all, it's important to highlight the tone from the top in demanding and setting an example of candor and integrity in the partnerships that occur between you and the parties that you engage with and between you and with WECC. And that candor and integrity is so important. And it's important that you demand it of all of those that you associate yourselves with. Second, the order is clear that the entity is responsible for the actions of its third party. Third, for the Aero enterprise, this is causing a lot of reflection. And it's something that will and has informed our scrutiny on interactions going forward. But fourth, let me kind of end with a little bit of reflection and just acknowledge that this industry is full of different participants from different types of organizations and different types of companies, and they all serve an important role. And there are many third-party consultants that do a lot of work that assist entities, that help sharpen their focus on the work that they have to do in this space, and that help prepare them. And so there's many of them that absolutely are focused on reliability and security. And I do want to acknowledge that because it's an important part of the fabric of all that we do. I'm hopeful that this is an aberrant one-off. It's not reflective of what I hope to see widespread. Nonetheless, I think it's important because it's something I think that we all should reflect on and learn about and have conversations within our own organizations to demand a level of accountability in our interactions and partnerships going forward. Just thanks for that opportunity to share those thoughts. Let me turn to the meat of the presentation now, and I want to introduce our keynote speaker, who's going to talk to us about a lot of topics, but fascinatingly, he's the Director of Intelligence at the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center, the E-ISAC. And I think his comments are going to be useful for us because we talk about reliability standards and compliance and the things that we do in oversight, but there's a why to what we do. And that why are, protecting against adversaries in the case of the security space. And so Frank's going to talk about some of those things. He focuses on cybersecurity there in the North American electricity sector. He leads the intelligence reporting on both IT and OT threats, and he collaborates with owner-operators throughout the continent. He's also been involved really heavily with the Cybersecurity Risk Information Sharing Program, or CRISP. So many of you are familiar with CRISP. He was at the Department of Energy's Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence before joining the ISAC, and he's contributed to the U.S. Cyber Command's efforts to protect operational technology systems. He's shared his cybersecurity and energy security expertise by drafting key mitigation and recovery sections for DOE's Joint Base Architecture for Security Industrial Control Systems, JBASIC's joint test, and he led the Red Team during exercises. He also contributed to a 2024 report to the President on Strategy for Cyber and Physical Resilience. Frank's also been on the road for quite a bit, so we do appreciate his time and his efforts in making it here. He was at the GridSecCon just last week, all week, Monday through Friday in Las Vegas, and so many of you who were there saw him there as well. But it's my great pleasure to welcome Frank Honkus up to the stage to give some keynote remarks as we open this conference. Thanks for coming all this way from the East Coast, and thanks for sharing your remarks with us today. Everyone give a warm welcome to Frank, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Frank Honkus. I am the Director of Intelligence at the E-ISAC. Thank you very much for inviting me out to address you all today. I'm going to walk through my talking points here, and then I think we'll have a little time at the end for some questions. So right now, I would say the grid of the United States, or I should say North America, is facing unprecedented change and challenges. And I would look at this as a combination of new and innovative technologies that are rapidly scaling and expanding to be plugged into the network, or excuse me, the grid, coupled with new demand. In this case, I'm thinking large loads, AI, things like that. So to that end, highlighting 5 of the current threats to the grid, and then we'll walk through each of those, and then a couple things of potentially what can be done about it, as well as the threats to them. So the first one is extreme weather. So I don't think there's any surprise here in this room of weather events becoming less predictable, more extreme, higher levels of damage, whether this is hurricanes, winter storms, heat waves, cold waves, floods, bow echoes or derechos, and similar things. These have direct impacts on the reliability of the grid, obviously, because they take out infrastructure, and they can take out all levels of infrastructure. Additionally, when these events are occurring, occasionally it's reported that others may take advantage of them. So they're using the hurricane event to test cyber capabilities potentially, or undertake a physical attack against infrastructure because no one's going to be out and about. It reminds me of a story of a group of bank robbers in the Old West who would purposefully go after banks whenever there was a blizzard because they knew no one was going to get out of their warm bed in the middle of the night during a blizzard to try to stop them. The next one is incident response. So for incident response, this is all things. So cyber incidents, physical incidents, insider threat, insider risk, and also supply chain. And I'll talk more about supply chain in a little bit. But doubling back, cyber obviously is something everyone takes very seriously and is highly concerned, especially with nation state actors and operators targeting the sector and being able to demonstrate the perniciousness of finding access to control system environments, IoT, et cetera, and hold them at risk. From a physical security perspective, there's a lot of unrest at this time in the United States, and it demonstrates itself politically it can just demonstrate itself motivated by politics, regardless of left or right, in the form of attacks against infrastructure, substations, things like that, as well as criminal activity, copper theft. I just saw yesterday, copper almost made it to $5 a pound, while gold and silver were $4,100 and $53 an ounce, respectfully. So I would anticipate as the metals market continues to go up, criminal activity will continue to do so as well, especially during these economic times. Insider threat, insider risk, that is not going to go away either. That's actually burgeoning. You're mostly, likely all of you are aware of the North Korean IT workers. They masquerade as people in the United States that take advantage to find jobs at businesses. And typically they're applying for jobs like IT architect or system administrator or et cetera. We saw this last year beginning in the sector, and it's only gotten worse. It's not just something exclusive to energy, but it's going to continue to grow. In supply chain, I'll talk a little bit about in IBRs. So as I touched upon at the beginning, large loads. So I think everyone here is cognizant of that as well. The increase in the demand for new data centers, the crypto mining facilities operating out of these, AI, electric vehicles, so fast charging hubs, and green hydrogen production. So I know some work I did circa 2023 for NERC was an analysis of the threat of crypto mining. Is there a threat to reliability was the question that was posed. Is there a threat to reliability from crypto mining? And at that time, it was beginning of December of 2023, the answer was yes. There was a study that was conducted looking specifically at the state of Texas, because at that time there was a massive growth in crypto miners that were coming out of China that were expatriated. China didn't want them in their country anymore. So they were migrating to Texas. And basically, according to the research, if all of them coordinated and began to cycle off, or excuse me, not cycle off, but wind their operations down or up, they could cause basically frequency interruptions. The next one I move on to is resource mix. So right now, this is, again, as I touched upon, this is a challenge. We continue to retire infrastructure, I should say steady state infrastructure, as we migrate more or we wind up more IBRs. This available generation has always been there in the past, so there was less risk of over exceeding margins, but by moving to IBRs and when the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow, it does create tighter reserve margins. The last one here is IBRs. So bringing in IBRs into the community. So the challenge is that there's a lack of inherent inertia. I briefly touched upon this with the resource mix. So with the lack of inertia, basically causes instability to the network, or can increase the risk of instability due to changes in grid frequency. And those can lead to system outages and system failures and power outages. Another challenge of IBRs is that they can be vendor specific. And so basically they're governed by the software and logic algorithms of the vendor. So it just adds another piece of the challenge to the reliability of the grid. It can also be challenging for utilities to fully control and operate them. Usually there's subcontracts or contracts directly with the organizations that build, maintain, install the infrastructure. Another challenge for this is supply chain. So much of this infrastructure is being produced outside of the United States. It may come from countries that we may have a love-hate relationship or straight up adversarial relationship with. Could be economically, politically, militarily, or all of the above. So where there are challenges, there are opportunities, so it's not all lost. Essentially, it's to try to combat or approach some of these, it's a multi-pronged approach in terms of recommendations. So for example, starting from the top again with extreme weather, investment in microgrids and battery systems that can help provide backup power during outages. Vegetation management is very important. Everyone here is cognizant of that. I was learning about sensing technology last week at WECC that helps monitor vegetation growth around pathways and such for transmission lines to understand, not to understand, but to identify and then plot out going out to cut. And then upgrading and aging infrastructure. The current administration is dumping several $1 billion into building new power gen across the United States, especially as we ramp up AI at data centers. For incident response, something that I've been telling state regulators, especially in the wind down of CISA, during this administration, is to prepare for utilities to approach you for cost offsets or rate increases, for looking for investment, cyber investments, physical security investments, others. Another one is contract language too, and basically the contract language that goes into the agreements between organizations and those that are going to do the builds or the fixes or the installs. From the investment perspective. The last one I have on here is there's still a critical need for linemen. As I was reading, I believe it's the growth of AI, or excuse me, I won't say AI specific, but majority data centers across the United States, and the need for linemen just dramatically or continues to dramatically increase. There's simply not enough to support the builds that are going on. A lot of electricians are on those sites actually doing the builds. So I've been seeing a lot online of lineman schools and things like that to try to start training up a new workforce or to retrain the current workforce to begin building or to support building. Another one for incident response is exercise. As most of you are aware, our GridX exercise is this year. We do it twice a year at E-ISAC. It'll be in November, and then we do the tabletop on the 20th. I believe the exercise starts on the 17th. Many of you likely are participating in the remote portion of the exercise. We also have what we're calling GridX in a box. So you can do something on site if you're not connected to the greater scenario. Looking at large loads, this one's much more of a challenge. A lot of these organizations that are coming on from the data center side are not necessarily familiar with this industry. A good example is I heard a story last week of a build at a data center. They needed a substation to support the data center. The utility could not find a substation in a timely manner. It was going to take 18 months. And the organization that's paying for the substation to be built is a major company in the information technology world. And they just show up one day with a transformer and say, put it in. And they're like, well, where'd you get it? Doesn't matter. Put it in. And so you have a little bit of a supply chain issue there because you don't know what's in it, where it came from. There's no bona fides. There's no manifest. It could have come from anywhere in the world. It could have come from anywhere in the country. So I bring that one up because of the coordination piece. It's going to become much more important to communicate and coordinate with the organizations that run and maintain these data centers. Otherwise, things like this, risks can be introduced to the power supply for these sites, such as just random transformers showing up and being asked or told to install them. Another one is that I've been reading about is dedicated on-site power generation, and then the ability or potential ability to feed power when not in use back out to the grid. I've been seeing a lot of discussion of small modular reactors to support this specifically, where they would come out to the site, put down the small modular reactor, power the data center. When the data center has, when they're not experiencing a large volume of traffic, they can, or analysis or production, they can send that energy back out to the, or electricity back out to the grid. I was talking to Bridget Walsh from the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity last week. She's the deputy director, and she was telling me a story that I think kind of resonates with this point. So in Canada, there's a lot of rural natural gas, and it's these farmers, and for decades, half a century, they would drill their own natural gas wells to power the farm. As Canada has continued to grow, a lot of those farmers have joined into co-ops. And now what they do is that the power they generate, any excess power, they sell back. And so I was wondering about, or thinking about that model for the data centers. If data centers begin to migrate or do migrate to their own on-site generation, a similar model of selling power back to the grid. But then that takes us to the next step of how do we ensure that they are doing it responsibly? How do we ensure that or how do we ensure that they are potentially economically incentivized and / lower regulated? Next one is resource mix. So this one's in the current administration, the Trump administration. There's a push for bringing back some of the old standby electric power generation, such as coal and others. My perspective is I do think we should have how about this? The energy or electric power generation is the sum of its parts. It's not just one specific power gen. If it's solar, wind, gas, nuclear, coal, doesn't matter. It's all of it together. It's a breadbasket, if you will. There's no one power generation technology or capability that can realistically provide all the power for everything in this country in the 2030 to 2033 timeline. And that's the timeline I'm giving you is the data center build. It's a massive wind up in data center build so that the United States can be a champion in AI. It's also from a security perspective, a variety of power gen sources can actually provide a more robust defense. This can be for weather events, cyber events, even physical attacks. Instead of being reliant on one thing that can have one vulnerability that can be exploited across all of them, a varied power gen capability across the country could help segment, isolate, et cetera. So local outages would remain an issue under that scenario, but it's better than a regional outage. Basically you can spread the risk across a geographic area, a state, a region, the country, the United States, Canada, et cetera. Finally, for IBRs, so there's new technologies that are concerning grid forming and grid following inverters and virtual synchronous machines to basically help with frequency. I also am thinking about, and I contemplate new frameworks to basically encourage IBR participation in frequency regulation. So it can be economic incentives, things like that. There was a study I was looking at last night, in fact, from EPRI, that was talking about this topic. Basically was going down this line specifically of trying to bring economic incentives before regulatory ones to bring them on. So in closing, these are all challenges, but I don't believe any of them are, and they are difficult, but I don't believe any of them are insurmountable. In this time, we will have to work through this together. We have no choice. Otherwise, we lose electric power. And if we lose electric power, that would definitely be to the detriment of North America, not just the United States. So a couple, plugs here is, if you haven't already, please consider joining the E-ISAC, the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center. It is free for owner-operators. Lots of information sharing. We talk about a lot of different things, not just cyber and physical. Insider is one of them as well. We're looking to do some more mitigation recommendations and things like that. Consider joining communities of interest. So two that I would plug immediately are the CRISP program, Cybersecurity Risk Information Sharing Program, which is operated by the E-ISAC. It's a private-public partnership between the Department of Energy, the E-ISAC, and the participating utilities. Participating energy sector members. It's not just limited to electric power. Essentially, it's a sensing program. We put what we call an information sharing device out that gathers metadata, network metadata from the edge and sends it back for analysis between Pacific Northwest National Lab, E-ISAC, and the Department of Energy. and essentially you get back reporting. But it's more than that. It is a community of interest. We utilize Armor Text to set up channels so that the members can chat. They're free to break off and form their own channels. They spin up or spin down during specific events across the grid, both cyber, physical, insider, et cetera. Another one is Cyber Mutual Assistance. It's a program run by EEI, Edison Electric Institute. It's another community of interest, much like we have mutual assistance from a physical perspective, pre-planning before major weather events and then going out during those weather events. The idea here is from a cyber perspective, that coordination piece, information sharing, et cetera. Finally, come to events like this. You're here, it's a conference, keep conferencing, connect with one another, mingle, talk to folks, network. These are the opportunities to meet together, to get to know each other for the work that you do when you're out doing audits, as well as before major events, because there's a concept of you have your formal intel channels, but then you also have your backdoor intel channels that are informal, where it's just the people you know, the people you've met along the way, the guy that does the thing or the woman that does the thing, and you can reach out to them directly and say, hey, I heard about X, could you help me? There's a lot of value in those relationships and building them and maintaining that level of trust. So I will hand it over to the audience. I'm standing by for questions. I like that. I must have been perfect. Everybody's quiet or the caffeine hasn't hit. That must have been the most epic briefing you've ever gotten in your life or keynote you've ever gotten. Yep. Bless you. There we go. All right.
Hello, good morning. Sorry, couldn't let you go that quickly. Monica from California ISO. Just a quick question. With the introduction of AI, which has been around now for a couple of years, what are you seeing from the attack sector in regards to the proliferation of AI and the attacks that might be expanding?
Yep.
And also, what is E-ISAC doing internally in regards to AI? Are you leveraging it or are you looking to explore it?
Sure. So that's great questions. First part of that question, it's absolutely being used. It's at this point, especially among criminal organizations, they're using it for to create better spear phishing emails or communications. A personal story right now, because my cell phone number is on my cards and my pass cards out, my work cell phone number specifically. I keep getting inundated now with text messages from, hey, how are you? Oh, hey, you at work? What are you doing? Don't know any of these numbers. Don't know any of the, I have no idea. They're not introducing themselves. From reading, it's probably someone put my number into like a large language model. The large language model simulating a person, and they're going to attempt to try to solicit me for something. They want money, Bitcoin, whatever. So it's just an example from a criminality perspective. Taking it to the next level of more in-depth cybersecurity, there's a lot of work that's going into using AI to basically tell it to go. So for example, I think one of the examples I remember reading was, so typically people would manually roll through IP addresses and domains during like a campaign, like a spear phishing campaign or something like that. In this case, they're using the AI, so it's already pre-programmed. It can automatically go make the transactions to purchase space. It can also wind space down. It can create new randomized domains, and then they just give it a list of targets and it goes. And then basically when it has results, it just reports it back whenever something's successful. So the evolution there is going to continue. Another one is malware analysis, or not malware analysis, malware generation. If I remember correctly, the stat was, if you asked it to, if you made an AI and you asked it to generate a malware strain, it was something like 80% of the time it gives you just garbage. 15% of the time it gives you something you can work with. And that other 5% of the time it's almost perfect. But it's still not like, it's still going to be low level, in other words, detectable, or more easily detectable, I'll put it that way, because it's still going to be new. But yeah, it's only going to continue. It's going to continue to proliferate, especially from a criminal perspective. There's just too much money in it, and there's no bad downside. A great example, if you want to juxtapose, is take that to the scamming that goes on in the United States, typically from foreign nationals in East Asia. So it's people that'll call people here in the United States, typically older people, and they'll say, insert, like, I have your kid and I want money, or there's a warrant out for your arrest, and to make this go away, you have to pay, or, whatever, you owe taxes and I'll make it go away, but you got to give me money. Think of that, put it on steroids, because now it's AI and not human beings actually having to talk, and, it's only going to get worse. And there's no way to catch. Oops, sorry. Okay, so then what are we doing about it as E-ISAC? So essentially what we've been doing is adopting or exploring the adoption of large language models to help with, in the first case, with normalization of data. So right now we have a program where data is shared. We call it the large data set program for physical security folks. Data comes in, and essentially the idea would be to feed it into this LLM to normalize, so that instead of a human being having to manually move it all into one spreadsheet and normalize it, the LLM would do it for them. And this way the analyst can focus more on the analysis. Another example is CRISP. The data sets we get for CRISP are excellent for a large language model to identify anomalies or anomalous traffic. So that's next year. In fact, that's what we're looking to start doing in our elk stack.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. No other questions. Appreciate it.